The Residential Tenancies Act establishes specific rules for belongings left behind by a tenant. When and how a landlord is required to manage situations involving tenant belongings will be discussed in this video and cover the following situations: eviction, abandonment, moved following notice, and death of the tenant. Here is Dave Greck from the Rental Housing Enforcement Unit to tell you more.
When a tenant is evicted, after the landlord has given proper notice and obtained an eviction order from the Landlord and Tenant Board, and that order has been enforced and the tenant removed from the premises, the landlord must make belongings available and accessible for the 72 hours following. The landlord is required to give the tenant access to their belongings for 72 hours after the locks have been changed between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. If the belongings are removed from the rental unit, they should be stored at a location close to the unit.
If the tenant abandons the rental unit and there is sufficient proof, the landlord may file an application for abandonment with the Landlord and Tenant Board or provide the tenant with a 30-day notice of their intent to dispose of the leftover belongings. If the tenant has abandoned the rental unit, the landlord can dispose of the belongings after receiving an order from the LTB or providing 30 days notice. The difficult question is, how does a landlord determine abandonment? Try answering the following questions. When was the tenant last seen at the unit? Has it been a long time? Did the tenant tell someone they were moving out? Did the neighbors see the tenant moving out? Is the mail being picked up? Did the tenant disconnect the utilities? A rental unit cannot be considered abandoned if the tenant has paid the rent and is not in arrears. If a tenant vacates a rental unit after receiving a notice from the landlord or after agreeing to a termination of the tenancy, the landlord may sell, keep, or dispose of the belongings. Sometimes belongings are left behind when a tenant has vacated the unit and returned the keys. Whether the tenant vacated following notice from the landlord to end the tenancy, notice from the tenant to end the tenancy, or both landlord and tenant agreed to end the tenancy and the agreement is in writing, the landlord is free to remove the belongings from the rental unit and can sell, keep, or dispose of them. If the tenant dies, the landlord may sell, keep, or dispose of the belongings 30 days after the date of death. If there was only one tenant and the tenant has died, the tenancy is considered terminated 30 days following the date of death. After the 30-day period, the landlord can sell, keep, or dispose of the tenant's belongings. However, if the tenant's family or estate decides to claim belongings within 6 months, the landlord has obligations. If the landlord sold the belongings, the landlord will have to give them the proceeds of the sale. If the landlord kept the belongings, they will have to return them. For more information on how to deal with tenant belongings, please visit www.landlordselfhelp.com.